We're going to go ahead and get started. We have 3 people doing the presentation today. My name is Beth Boyd. I am the Substance Use Treatment Services Manager for the Department of Corrections. I'm going to let Amanda and Adam introduce themselves and tell them a little bit about their story when their time to present comes. So the good news is that I know you're not here to listen to me. I know you're here to actually listen to the peers and what they're doing and what the great work they're doing and the success they're having. So I'm going to talk for just a short while, and then I'm going to turn it over to them to be able to tell you about the programs they're working with. So we appreciate everybody joining us today. So, okay, let me get this going. Maybe there we go. So I've started with the MDOC about almost 5 years ago. I started as the Substance Use Treatment Services Manager. I worked at Lapeer County Jail before as a law enforcement liaison for Lapeer Community Mental Health, worked on mental health team out there. I saw a lot of substance abuse clients when I was the therapist there also, and then transitioned into this role almost 5 years ago. In my time in the last 5 years, I've seen some great changes where we have started employing people that have felony backgrounds, and there's been a much bigger push to not incarcerate people for substance use, reincarcerate them. We're not in charge of the court system, but we don't try to violate people for substance use. We try to get them treatment. There's been a lot bigger push to use recovery coaches and make sure that we have people with lived experience meeting with individuals under our custody. So it's just been a really great experience. And what I hear all the time is if we believe in second chances, then we have to make sure that people have that inspiration and hope. So it's just been like a very great experience for us. So if you could do the second polling question, I'd really appreciate that. Okay, perfect. That's the first one. Perfect. Okay, so here we go. So we'll just have you answer this polling question, please. I'll just give you a couple seconds. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. So I'll speak about our timeline of when things have been occurring with the MDOC. So back in 2015, before I was at MDOC, the mental health director, along with MDHHS, started to train incarcerated individuals to be recovery coaches inside our prison systems. So that started back in 2015. I think we've trained over 100 recovery coaches that have been incarcerated with us, but that was kind of the first time that we had ever considered and done something like that. It was a really great program. It kind of got a little bit stalled during COVID, just like everything else in life. But it's really starting to come back alive, and we're planning on doing some more trainings of incarcerated individuals. And then back in 2019, we had a program called MIREP, which was a Michigan Reentry program for people with opiate use disorders and mental health issues. And we hired recovery coaches ourselves. So we started hiring recovery coaches to work for us. And that's the first time MDOC has ever hired recovery coaches. So that started back in 2019 with MIREP. We really believed that went very, very well. We appreciated the role they played. So we were able to expand that. And when we started prescribing medications for addiction treatment, we wrote the grant proposal, and I asked for 4 recovery coaches in 4 prison sites throughout Michigan, and we were able to get that grant. I would like to say that a lot of that is because MDHHS themselves sees a huge benefit from recovery coaches. So whenever I've asked for grant monies for recovery coaches, they've been fantastic, and they've always been extremely supportive. So we've appreciated our relationship with them quite a bit, because when we've been able to get grant funding for those positions. And then back in 2021, we started hiring them for parole and probation offices. So we'll go into that a little bit more, but we started hiring there also. And then for fiscal year 2022, starting in October, we're going to be able to expand to even more recovery coaches in parole and probation. So the program's growing bigger and bigger. It's done, I mean, both programs that we're going to talk about today have just done really great work. We're really excited about what we're doing. And I think it's really one of the only correctional systems that I've ever heard employee recovery coaches to do type of work that we're doing. So it's really one of the greatest, when I look back on my career, it's one of the greatest things I've been able to accomplish is being able to hire people in recovery to do this work. So I'm very proud of what we've been able to do. Next. There we go. So training of incarcerated individuals, like I said, we've trained 115 incarcerated individuals. They've been trained as either peer support specialists or recovery coaches. So we've done both. And some of the duties that they have done is they've met with people individually and through group. They have helped people identify triggers, developed increased coping skills. They've helped them develop supports and communication skills, emotional regulation and awareness, mindfulness, meditation skills, and then trauma-informed interventions like dealing with anger, resentment, forgiveness, awareness, and restoration of dignity. So we've been able to have 115 incarcerated people. Some of them have paroled already. So our numbers are not 115 that are currently incarcerated. We also have some people that are lifers that have been trained because we see the benefit of doing that. That way we have some consistency and they have some purpose. You know, it's got to be horrible to think the rest of my life I'm going to spend in prison, but if we can give them some purpose by helping other people and get them that training, I see a huge value in doing that. So we've been able to do that. So I asked the unit chiefs, which is the highest level of mental health inside the facility. I said, what is it that they're doing? And one of them wrote this, and I just thought it was really important that I include this quote in here. And I apologize, like I'm trying to speak to you, but my screen where I'm reading from is over here, so it looks very awkward. But she said they run at least one educational and self-help group with another peer, which I think is a really great model to do, whose topics could include like thinking errors, stress management, self-esteem building, and grief and loss. She said they have a bit more space than other facilities. So they have a room that's available on a regular basis, which is miraculous because we have no space at our facilities. So you can see the type of commitment to provide a space for these individuals. That's a huge commitment in the facilities. She said, we also assign inmates who are struggling and in need of extra support, such as a death of a family member, transfers from residential treatment to outpatient treatment, and transitions into the prison, to a peer support that they meet with on a monthly or every other week basis. So we use this as a supplement to our case management individual therapy with QMHP. So QMHP is a qualified mental health professional, psychologist, social worker, counselor that they see. So they work conjunctively with mental health that's in that facility. But when she wrote this, I thought, gosh, isn't that exactly what we want to be doing? Like because you never know, you train people and then you want to hear, what are they really doing, right? It's great that we train people, but what exactly are they doing? And are they doing the things that they were trained in doing? And when she sent this to me, I was like, spot on. This is great. I love this. And they're really doing the work that they were trained to do. So I was very happy to receive this. So the Michigan Reentry Program paired individuals. We had people working for DOC, and then we had people that worked in the community setting that came into the facilities to provide treatment. So they had a case manager and recovery coach that worked for the communities, and then we had a coordinator and a recovery coach that worked for us. So we worked together to help that program, and it worked a lot better too when COVID hit, because we had those peers that were inside the prison already, and they could help assist with finding treatment on the outside during that height of COVID when it just got really bad and it was really hard to get people, we couldn't get outside contractors inside the prison. So they were very instrumental. So we hired them, and the things that we saw that was a great benefit is they demonstrated empathy and caring and concern to bolsters a person's self-esteem and confidence. They provided those resources. So a lot of times they made appointments, they made connections to CMHs and PIHPs or community treatment providers. And then they also had to complete those GIPRAs, which, we all love GIPRAs. It's like the favorite thing in the whole wide world. But they were able to build a relationship while working through that GIPRA, right? Because it asks them about everything in their entire life, from the moment they're conceived until today. So they're really able to get that nice background and history with them and build that relationship while doing that GIPRA. Unfortunately, funding is ending on September, the end of next month for MyRep. But what we've done is we're taking that money and putting it in towards peers into our parole and probation offices. So we're going to be able to switch that money from MyRep to kind of switch over to doing this in the community. I think it's going to be a good program. It's working really well with where we're doing it now. So I'm excited about that. So just a little bit of background on our MAT program. So back in 2017, we started prescribing 1 shot of Vivitrol pre-release. So we would give them 1 shot of Vivitrol and we would schedule them an appointment in the community. So we did that for a couple of years. About 2019, end of 2018, we really started planning for full implementation of MAT, which included buprenorphine and oral naltrexone during the term of an individual's incarceration. And we started at 2 prisons. We're now up to, I think, 8, 9, something like that, that we prescribe and utilize those type of medications. We still do Vivitrol upon release, but we also do additional MAT services. So what we want, it should have been goal, is all 28 facilities. We're not at it. I'm sorry, we've got oral naltrexone at all 28, but we only have buprenorphine at 9 facilities because we need to get the providers able to prescribe. We need to have enough custody and nursing staff to hand out the medication. So we're doing it site by site and bringing on more sites. Every year we're bringing on more sites, but at any site right now, they can have oral naltrexone. And our goal obviously is to get it statewide to all of our 28 prisons in the state. So that is our MAT program. And then we called our parole and probation program. The team of recovery coaches voted and suggested names. We call it the RAPS program, which is Recovery Advocacy Programs and Support. We got grant funding in 2021 and we hired 6 recovery coaches. We put 2 in Washtenaw, 2 in St. Clair, and 2 in Saginaw. And the purpose was really to assist individuals on parole and probation with addressing the high needs of the population we served. It also really helps the agents too, because the agents, they're frequently there on report day. The person drops positive, the agent goes up to the recovery coach and says, hey, can you help this person? Maybe refer them to treatment, maybe help them find a little hope in this bad situation, provide them AA, NA meetings, like whatever they can do. It really does help the agent too. So it's helping the actual person under supervision, but it's actually helping our agents also. So in October 2022, we'll have a total of 24 recovery coaches that we're going to be utilizing instead of just 6. So that's really huge. And then we're also hiring what we consider a lead recovery coach, and their job is really to support the other coaches, do trainings, do site visits, talk to them on the phone when things get a little bit overwhelming or they need, additional resources that they can't find themselves. We're going to have a lead recovery coach. And then we have a program coordinator, which is more involved in, how are we doing the paperwork? How are we tracking the data? How do we, get those processes in place and make sure that we're doing a good job with all of that? So that would be our RAPS program that we have. I see we have a couple questions in chat. Is there anything? I have a hard time pulling up chat when I'm doing the presentation. Is there anything I should address before I turn it over to Adam? Okay. Adam, I think you are up.
All righty. Hope everyone's having a good day. Thank you, Beth. My name is Adam Howe. I'm a peer recovery coach for the Michigan Department of Corrections. Give you guys a brief overview of my background. I am a recovering IV heroin user of almost a decade. I came into this process in 2013. I come from a very well-off family located in Jackson, Michigan. And I didn't really have any issues growing up. A lot of times you hear people have really, traumatic family lives growing up, which could have maybe started their addiction, but I didn't really experience that all too much. I was an avid basketball player my whole life. I got into some trouble going into my senior year in high school. I received a minor in possession of alcohol, and I think that was probably where everything started. I was kind of given a slap on the wrist. Looking back now, 13, 14 years later, it would have probably been good to have more of a consequence. And back then, the support that I needed wasn't, readily available like it is today. But I, was playing basketball, and I had a college offer to play at Concordia University, which is located in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I had a sports injury that required me to take some controlled medications, and anyone who's ever been addicted to opiates probably starts there. And then going into playing college basketball, I was introduced to heroin. I started snorting it, and then I started using it through an IV. And then that was my entire basketball career. And then from there, I continued to use heroin. Only used heroin until I was 23, when I went into treatment in Lansing, Michigan. And while in treatment, I met a group of individuals, actually one person in particular. This treatment center I was at, they took us to meetings, to meet people in the community, stuff like that. Now it's best practice to do that at residential treatment, to get people out into the community and learning about recovery. And I met an individual who said he was going to be starting a recovery housing program. And I was very apprehensive about recovery housing. I didn't really understand, what the concept was. And it was him and his mom that were going to start it. I come from a very Catholic background, so my parents were like, "Yeah, this probably ain't going to work. We can save you. You don't need to do this. You don't need to relocate." And I took a leap of faith, and I slept on this individual's couch for 2 months before this recovery house opened. And that recovery house is called the Rise Recovery Community in Lansing. And I helped start it with them in 2014. And then I ran it for them. I managed all the staff for them, became a peer recovery coach in the process. And then I found my way to MDOC, where, what's funny is, my mom made a comment, not too long ago, that when I was a kid, I wanted to do two things when I grew up. I wanted to be a used car salesman. Do not know why I wanted to sell used cars. And I wanted to help bad guys get better. That's one thing that she mentioned to me. And that was kind of when I got clean, was really a huge motivator to me. In working in recovery, working with all sorts of populations, one thing I really wanted to do was figure out how to rehabilitate sex offenders. Because one thing I noticed working in recovery housing was there were no programs for these individuals to rehabilitate, right? And I look at it from, this is our community, this is our surrounding area, I have to live here. So if I want to help make it safe, then I have to help make it safe. And I do that through helping the individuals who are not making it safe, right? So it's kind of swallow my own pride to help somebody else for the greater good. And that's one thing that I really, was motivated by. And then, I got a hold of Beth Boyd, and because I heard this new program was coming out in the prisons. I was very against MAT when MAT first started, like most people were, I think. I don't know many people in recovery that were for it, but it became very useful, and in terms of harm reduction, saved a lot of lives. I'm all for multiple pathways of recovery. I've opened my mind way past AA and NA, because when I came in, if you weren't affiliated with one of those two groups, you were not technically in recovery, so they say. But that has changed, so I should probably change my mindset with it. So throughout these years, I've been able to work with a wide variety of populations. And it's working inside of a prison is much different than you would think it would be. There's a lot of rules, there's a lot of, red tape, tiptoeing around, but it's very, it is very encouraging to see guys at least want the help. It is not my place to say that they're ready or not. That is for them to decide. But if I can do anything to help just one inmate succeed when they get outside of the community, then I will say my job has been successful. So that's a little bit about me. I don't want to bore you with with a bunch of details. IV heroin user. An opposite of addiction for me is purpose. Purpose is what I found while getting in recovery. And it's the only thing that has kept me clean is helping other people. I did not get clean to work in a restaurant or work on cars. I don't know how to work on cars anyways, but if I did, I wouldn't want to do that. I enjoy what I do, and I'm excited to continue in this presentation to help you guys maybe understand a little bit of what life looks like inside of the prison, and the support and programming available to inmates who are locked up. So if we want to go to the next slide. So an overview of the MAT program inside of correctional facilities. MAT is designed to offer treatment for inmates with a diagnosed SUD and or alcohol use disorder, with focus being in the following areas. And just so you guys know, they do not only meet with a PRC inside the prison, they also meet with a QMHP, which is a qualified mental health professional, who is more of the clinical side of things. And the PRC is more on the support, helping through the recovery process, and that sort of thing. So it will be focused on treatment planning, identifying areas of support, medication information, healthcare. Just like in the real world, PRCs should not be giving any medication information, and it's very similar in here. We let healthcare deal with all of that, and they will make the correct diagnosis for what this person should receive for medication. Provide resources to assist in success upon the release of MDOC, identifying triggers and coping skills, share experience, strength, and hope. Experience, and this is very important to note. Inside of prison, it's important that the PRCs are being vague in very minor details. Like I said, there's a lot of rules here. You don't want to get too familiar. It's called I can't say the word, Beth. Over familiarization with the inmates, and it's one of those things where you want to help support them with experience, strength, and hope, but you want them to know as little personal information about you as possible. And that's just how it is in here, and it's hard, because I like to be able to share all that stuff openly and freely, but it can make it challenging for the inmate staff relationship. So that's why we just keep everything very vague. They attend groups with other inmates that are facilitated by MAT staff inside the prison, whether that be the PRC or the QMHP facilitating the group. A group of 6 to 10 guys will be called out of their cells and will attend an hour group, and they're chosen based on priority, or if they're in MAT on the referral list for MAT, and they're chosen that way. Journaling and action plan for continued treatment and connecting with community supports upon release. So one thing we pay attention to is we will occasionally give them homework in group, and the guys that bring back the homework and have actually put in effort are the ones that are going to continue to be called out for groups. Because one thing we've noticed is sometimes the inmates just want to get out of their cells. So they'll act like they're really open-minded to some sort of treatment or some sort of help. But when you give them the tasks, right, the homework per se, they're not too gung-ho about doing that. So the guys who are putting in the most effort are the ones that are going to be involved in groups. Implementation. Once a referral is completed for an inmate via self-reporting, custody, which are correctional officers, nursing, or the QMHP, the referral will be sent to the appropriate MAT staff for tracking purposes and callouts for the inmates referred. The prison that I am at RGC, which is the first stop for all men sentenced to Department of Corrections in the state of Michigan. So it's a little different at this prison, being that the only people that get inducted in a MAT here are people who come in out of the county jails already on Suboxone. Then they would be converted to Sublocade. At this time, there is no physical Suboxone strips inside of MDOC. Those who are on Suboxone will be put on the Sublocade shot. And then I don't know if Beth acknowledged this, but naltrexone is offered at all 28 prisons. And any individual can be placed on naltrexone for alcohol use disorder or opioid use disorder. And that will be a healthcare thing. Healthcare will make the determination if this person is appropriate based on the person self-reporting that they have substance use or alcohol use disorder, or another staff who is advocating for the individual. The screening and MAT assessment. And one thing I missed is anybody who comes into prison in withdrawal will be placed on MAT. So it's another because we get people who come in here on parole violations, who didn't go to the county jail, who are coming off the street that are in fact withdrawing from heroin or other opioids or alcohol. You know, it's a very real thing. So those are taken very seriously. And that individual will be seen as soon as withdrawal symptoms are identified. And then from there, the correct medication will be taken into account. The screening and MAT assessment could take place at the inmate's assigned facility due to the volume of referrals and are met with and potentially inducted on a priority basis. A lot of individuals are referred to the MAT program in MDOC. It's very overwhelming, the amount of people, but not all people would qualify. Some of them do not know what it is. So that's when we provide them with knowledge and understanding and a little bit of education on what the MAT program is. You can imagine being in prison for many, many years, and you hear a new program is being brought into the prison, you want to be the first on that list. No matter what you know about that. These individuals here are in their cells for roughly 22 hours a day. So anything that they can do to get out of the cell is what they want to do. So that's when it's our job to provide them with information. If somebody tells us that they've never had a substance use disorder or an alcohol use disorder, then maybe, you know, this is not the greatest program for them. And that's what we try to find out along this process. The barriers and challenges of implementation inside of the prison. Inside the prison, and this was one of the hardest things that I had to overcome, was there are a battery of resources and support for mental health treatment here at this specific prison, whereas substance use disorder still seems to have a stigma and lacks an understanding of the treatment necessary to offer structure and support to offenders who are diagnosed with opioid use or alcohol use disorder. Most cases have been diagnosed as co-occurring with SUD and mental health, which is seen to be a direct cause of the extensive criminal history and current period of incarceration. There are a lot of individuals in the state of Michigan. The number is relatively high of inmates who do have substance use and alcohol use disorders. And a big challenging thing for me was understanding that a lot of the staff here also needs, education, not just inmates. And I need education. I'm continuously learning. There's people who I work with here that have been here for 25 years and have only worked in mental health, and they're now being introduced to this sector of substance abuse. And it's different and it's hard, but it's the eyes are starting to be open to the support out there to help rehabilitate these individuals. A challenging part of implementation at this prison is we are known as the quarantine prison. So anyone who comes into RGC here in Jackson will be subject to COVID quarantine for 2 weeks. And then they will be locked in their cells for a majority of the day going forward until they ride out of here to whatever assigned prison they're at for however many years that they'll be inside. So the strict cohort schedule that only allows for inmates to be called out on certain days and times, which I kind of explained can be difficult here due to the quarantine policy and the unknown length of stay, which can also be disruptive to the treatment process because when individuals are coming to this prison, they are not told where they're going until the moment that they leave the prison. That is for security and safety reasons. So they can't make phone calls and have people, you know, just anything you can think of, they just don't want them to do that. So with that being said, I don't find out either that they're leaving. So when it comes to a individual that's on MAT, it's hard to, it can be disruptive to the treatment process, not being able to coordinate, you know, anything with that individual when they ride out to the new facility. So that can be challenging here as well, but we're trying to work out the kinks. And the goal ultimately is to support the inmates, regardless of our personal opinion. They need help. And our job is to provide that to them. Benefits of having a peer inside of a correctional facility with a history of lived experience in addiction and recovery has a lot of value by providing knowledge of resources and services necessary to assist the individual in bridging the gap and finding success in the community. Most all guys that I've met here that I meet with every single day have been in prison previously. 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times, you know, and they've never been given an opportunity in here to begin the treatment process. And that's much harder. It's like if I have anyone in recovery on here and you've been to residential treatment, at most residential treatment facilities, aftercare is planned pretty much the day you get there. And unfortunately, that's not the same for here. And that's what, you know, it proves challenging is the transition of treatment is a little difficult. So, some job roles and responsibilities. The MAT staff would meet with inmates one-on-one to provide support in assisting the offender in identifying needs. Make sure all MAT referrals are documented, tracked, and followed up with accordingly. Utilize motivational interviewing to problem solve and to create less surface level interactions. Especially in here, it's once in a blue moon when you have to get someone that, you know, absolutely is very wanting to talk and wanting to dig down in what's going on. So it's important to utilize those motivational interviewing skills to get a little deeper than just everything's okay. I'm bored. I sit in a cell with another man for 22 hours a day. We want to go beyond that. We want to try to pick and see, you know, how can we open up your mind to something different, right? And being very real with them and very honest and authentic with the prisoners will give you more of a will allow you to help them more. Completing GPRAs, which is the Government Performance and Results Act, with all inmates inducted into MAT, except for those prescribed naltrexone, within 72 hours of induction, if possible, due to facility policy. With that being said, it's 72 hours is not really possible here because of the COVID quarantine that they have to do when they come in. But I work with the other facility staff to try to make that possible and figure out where we can move around to make sure that gets done in a timely manner. Facilitating groups weekly to offer hope and a positivity to inmates, as well as a platform to share and listen to others share similar experiences and feedback. Inside of prison, they do not have a whole lot of places to talk about what is going on with them. There's not a whole lot of platforms to be honest and open without fear of being judged or overstepping prisoner politic boundaries. And it's a very real thing. Prison politics plays a major part in why people don't speak up in prison. fear of being judged, beat up, whatever the case may be. It is getting better, but it is something that is still a very, very real thing. Provide resources available in the community for continued success and participation in treatment. Work alongside healthcare and mental health to ensure each MAT participant is supported in a collective effort. So the PRC, the MAT, QMHP, as well as the nurses, the psychiatrists, all work together in a collective effort to make sure that this person is supported and getting the treatment that they need or that they deserve. All right, unique needs of incarcerated inmates. I would say more substance abuse related education and programs inside of prison. Like I talked about earlier, there's a lot of mental health support in here. But in terms of substance use disorder, there are not a lot of programs that are offered. Weekly one-on-one group sessions for constant support, encouragement, and accountability with treatment. Being that this is the MAT program, anybody familiar with MAT, MAT is not just medication, MAT is treatment as well. And that is also inside of prison. So we have to be very, we have to be as clever as we can with the resources that we have inside of here to help the individuals along the recovery journey. And knowledge and understanding from prison staff, healthcare, mental health, and custody, which is your corrections officers. There can be a lot of preconceived notions about inmates, especially from the staff. You know, they're just prisoners, and you know, they break the law. You know, but they also are people that need support just like anybody else. I don't know about you guys, but being a person who used to abuse drugs, I broke the law a couple times as well. And somebody helped me along the way. So I want to be that individual who can also help somebody else, regardless of my personal opinion on the situation. Then the MAT release process, upon an individual being granted a parole date from the parole board, the MAT staff will work diligently with outside agencies to provide a continuum of care in the county in which the offender will be paroling to. MAT staff will schedule an appointment with a MAT provider within 2 weeks of the release date to ensure there's no lapse in treatment services, and will provide all details to the client, as well as providing the information in the release packet and sending appointment information to probation and parole. So here, this is not a process we do at this prison because this is the first step in their prison journey. They are here, and then they ride out to whatever prison they'll be in. But in the other prisons, it's important to begin this process whenever you know an earliest release date or the parole board has accepted the individual as being released into the community. Success stories. This was very difficult for me to come up with. Amanda, who's going to go after me, did a fabulous job with her success stories. But success here inside of corrections looks a little different than it does in the community. Inmates are offered a battery of resources and programs to participate in during their term of incarceration. More specifically, MAT participants who are fully invested in these programs inside of prison are far more likely to exceed in the recovery outside of prison. That's why, you know, individuals claiming substance use disorder, we try to get on them like hawks because we understand that, you know, if he's been in here and he's been using drugs for however many years and he's in here for his 4th retail fraud or larceny, chances are he wasn't stealing to pay his consumer's bill. He was probably stealing to support a habit, right? And then we see that more cases than not. And providing them with any type of support and resources will only increase their possibility of being successful in the community and reducing recidivism. Offender success begins with the peer knowledge, understanding, and presentation of information to the inmates, and continues in the community with the individual's open-mindedness to stay on the right path and utilize the supports available to them. Now, It is our job to provide them with the knowledge and the understanding, but ultimately they have to put in the work themselves. So we are here as peers to help facilitate this process, but not do it for them. All we ask for is a little open-mindedness to begin the recovery journey and provide our own experience, strength, and hope to hopefully perpetuate that motivation. And that is all for my slides, I think. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So my name's Amanda Bolotta. I am one of the 2 peers in St. Clair County probation and parole. As Beth mentioned, we are in 3 different counties. So in addition to St. Clair, it's Saginaw and Washtenaw. So a little bit about me and why this is working with this population is basically a dream come true for me, which aside from Adam saying you probably don't hear very often. But ironically enough, 5 years ago today was the last time I was in front of a judge, knock on wood, and I was sent to jail for a longer period of time than I had ever been. And what happened for me, losing my freedom for more than like a 30, 60-day kind of stint, which is what I was used to doing, it was eye-opening that it really was going to be jails, institutions, or death for me if I continued on the path that I was going along. While I was there that last time, I had CPS and foster care come up to the window and tell me that I was facing termination because of my incarceration. I lost everything on the outside, but something about the length of time was different for me. So the time prior to me being there in 2017 was in 2016. I was there when I was pulled out and told that my husband had overdosed and passed away, and that my 1-year-old was in the home when it happened. So the state was taking jurisdiction over her. So I always say that I would love to come back from that story if I could go back and say that that was it. And that was the amount of pain I needed to change the rest of my life. But in my experience, nothing, the bottom just didn't, it seemed like I didn't have a bottom to most people. But so for me, I'm very grateful for corrections, because without me losing my freedom and losing control of everything on the outside, I don't know that I would have ever had the epiphany of where I was very fastly running my life into. And then the thing about my husband is when he did pass away, he was under supervision in St. Clair County for felony probation. And so in dealing with him and a lot of the people that I meet today, I know that there is a large group of people who are in and out of prison and in and out of jail their entire life and not getting that rehabilitation aspect ever. And that was him big time. So he really struggled with the disease aspect of our addiction, and any kind of treatment. To him, it was more of a control thing. And so now that I work in the population, if I can help one guy be a father to his child, then that is the coolest living amends that I could ever do for my husband, for my daughter, for my life, and to what Adam was saying, changing our pain into a purpose, which that's what we get to do in peering, has been the greatest gift. And so for me, part of my healing was to serve in areas that I was once in bondage in. So I went back and I worked at the treatment center that I cycled in and out of. And then from there, I also served on a parent advisory board for CPS and foster care to try to help rewrite policy in the state of Michigan. And so corrections was kind of the last missing piece for me. So when this job became available, I quickly talked myself out of it, that a person like me with a record like mine would never get an opportunity like this. So I like walked through fear and I did the thing, and then I obviously got the job. So it's the coolest thing in the world to be able to help build a program, especially a program in helping others and how to more effectively help others, especially when you have such a passion to do so. So there's a lot of reasons that corrections is my jam, I guess. I love what I do, and I love the success that we see, or just the people that we leave better than we found them. It's like the coolest thing. So this first slide is not unique to just probation. It's probation and parole. So we work with the population who are not always open to help, or up for an honest conversation with anyone who works in parole or probation. But as we get to know them, we start to trust one another. They trust our experience a little bit more. And it's been really cool to see some people open up and actually get some help that they've needed for a while. We're able to assess which pathway of recovery might work best for them, and then kind of walk along with them to see what that looks like. So for me, I'm in the community. So I'm meeting people out at coffee shops. I'm going to recovery meetings with people. I'm going to an outreach center. Wherever is needed, we meet. So our program is 100% voluntary, which is another cool aspect. So each county is unique in the way that they're doing this program. I have supervisors in parole and probation in St. Clair County. So the other counties also have their own supervisors who have their own rules. So it's very important for my supervisors in St. Clair County to keep this voluntary. So people are requesting the help, not being ordered the help, because they feel that if it turns into an ordering kind of thing, which if you've ever been under supervision, like me, if it was one more thing, it's just like, let's get it over with as fast as I can. We really want this to be an opportunity for people to seek out help if they want it, and then be open to the help that they're getting. And so keeping it voluntary has been really awesome for us. I think that we have better success doing it that way. So the agent submits a referral request for the offender. They call them offenders, we call them clients. So they submit a referral request, and then we start working with them. I will say in St. Clair County, we advocated immediately when I started this position, I advocated to get into the jail. Post-COVID, there was like no 12-step meetings going in at a certain period of time. I thought that doing a peer group would be really beneficial. So we were able to start jail groups. And with those groups, we'll get referral, we'll meet people that have the need, and then we let the agent know who could benefit from coaching. So that's really helped our program also. So there's a lot of barriers and challenges to implementation of anything new probably, but in this program, there's not all, but some agents don't have a recovery mindset at all. So some of the agents that I've dealt with have that like historical correction, punitive mindset. Some have referred out of punishment. So like they have somebody that in their eyes can't get clean. So we are a punishment. And if they don't work with us, then they'll get in more trouble. So we've actually worked really hard to educate agents and the clients we serve on like who we are and how we can help, and how we are for the client. We are not working for or with the agent. So if I have people actively out there using, I'm not turning around and like informing the agent of everything that's going on with them. We work really hard to keep our program confidential so we can build trust. We also, I mentioned in the second part, about the jail, we also have a group in the halfway house here in town. So I tried to advocate to the agents, especially, that coaching can be a preventative measure as much as it can be a treatment. So in the beginning of our program, because I was the first coach here in St. Clair County, I was only getting referrals for people who were dropping dirty. So we've tried to switch the mindset a little bit to that we can be helpful for the people just getting out on parole. Now, when that has happened, it's been really great to see how much we're helping the people that are reintegrating into society into the next right steps, instead of them falling maybe backwards a little bit and then trying to help them from there. So I mentioned that in the last part about we had a lot of problematic cases, but that is slowly changing also, which is pretty cool. So roles and responsibilities, a little similar to Adam, we do the GIPRAs. That's a big part of our job. In addition to that, we create a safe space for the client. We support multiple pathways. We facilitate and engage clients in recovery focus group in jail and out of jail. We do a lot of coordination of housing out here. We also coordinate a lot I'm a big advocate of outpatient therapy. A lot of the clients that I have, it's something that they need to do. So it's been nice to work with the ones that maybe aren't meshing at one place and help them move over to something that's actually working for them. And above all else, provide a model to show recovery is possible. The really cool thing that happens, especially with some history in corrections, is like when they see that you're a person that made it to the other side, sometimes like that little bit of hope is all they need. And that's like been the coolest part of this journey for me. And this girl is a perfect example. So I met her in the jail class in September of 2021. She really like only needed to hear that she could do it. Like I don't know that she had ever met a person that had made it onto the other side, especially a person that had worn the same jumpsuit as she wore. And so it was cool because we talked about how it's all about the next steps for her. So we got her right into a 3-quarter house from the jail. And then from there, I think there's a second slide to her. She was able to get out of the 3-quarter house successfully complete. She started to get visitation with her child again, who she was going through CPS with. She got her 1 year clean, which was super cool to witness and be a part of. She also recently, a few months ago, went and did the CCAR training to become a certified coach, because this is now her passion. She's decided that she found a way out and she wants to help other people do it too. So I always tell her that she needs to come help teach my jail class with me, which is another thing that she would be great at. Because again, like if you've been there, and she would be a great asset to what we got going on. So I have a lot of success stories, and the truth be told, pretty much every client I work with is a success in their own way. The next one. So she is really a really cool success story, because I started working with her in October of last year. And we have gone through so many different ups and downs and all arounds. She's done really, really good and then slid backwards and then done really, really good. And like, she's the epitome of what the recovery journey is about, at least what mine was about. I failed a lot and I failed forward, and I always encourage her to keep doing it. So today she's doing much better. She's holding a job. She's, when the last struggle that she had, we talked about like the importance of inpatient treatment. She's like trying to do the 90 and 90. She's like just making such cool strides in a direction that I don't think a year ago she ever was even like thinking about. And the coolest thing about her is her honesty. She will tell me the truth about anything, and it's really going to help her in the long run. So she's been awesome to work with. And then the next one, that was more about her. I could talk about them forever. So this one was really cool too. She actually successfully completed recovery coaching. I always give them the option at the 6-month point in a GIPRA if they want to continue on or not. Most do want to continue on. But she eventually said that she was good on her own because she is helping others as part of her service. So when I started working with her, she had like an extensive history of homelessness. CPS was basically telling her agent that there was like no hope, that they've been dealing with her for years. So we went through a little bit in the beginning of like in and out of treatment, but eventually when she absconded temporarily and I met up with her again in the jail, that was her moment. That was her moment of like facing that this is like where her choices were going to lead her long term if she kept it up. And so from there, she went to a 3-quarter house. When she was there, after like 3 or 4 months, or 3 months, she had a stroke and she had to leave. And then as soon as she recovered, which she did recover, she signed herself back up to go back in. So she is now still there. I think she's on the second slide also. She had a year clean at the beginning of July. And she is also doing the next CCAR training here in Port Huron in August. And also she'd like to teach jail classes too. So, but the coolest thing about her is she's a mom again today. She has her kids in her life. She doesn't have to coordinate with a caseworker to go have visitation anymore. And like, that is a really cool freedom to witness. And then this was one of my male parolees. He was really heavy in his methamphetamine use, but he was like really always upfront and honest about what he would do and what he wouldn't do and what he would listen to and what he wouldn't listen to. But it was cool because what happened is the more time I invested into him, the more meetings we went to, the more times I showed up and met him for coffee, the more times I picked up the phone when he called. We started to develop a relationship where he could trust me. He knew that he could depend on me being there and showing up when he needed it. So over time, he was another one that when the agent referred him, she said, "I'm sorry that you have to deal with this person, blah, 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 blah." And like really to this day, he's been one of my most favorite people. He successfully transferred out to Wayne County. He went through the Salvation Army. And he transferred his parole out there. So when that happened, I had to finish him off my caseload, but he still calls me like once a month to keep in touch and give me updates of where he's at and what's going on and how often he's seeing his son, because that was another priority for him. So he is definitely another success story. So we have many unique needs for the clients we serve. So not all treatment providers in our area allow MDOC into their care. That is something that is a big struggle. The closest treatment center to us is the one that I actually worked at for years, and I believe it's one of the better ones. Between them and Region 10, there is like something not working where they're not allowing MDOC in right now. So with that, there's a whole outpatient that I don't have for females in this, in our county either. So that's a huge barrier at this moment. I hope that it's something that changes here in the near future. I know that there's many different people working on it. But most have never been into an inpatient facility either. It's also something that can't be ordered. So if somebody's continually dropping dirty and they just don't want to go to treatment, then unfortunately going back to jail is going to be the option. Not all jobs out here will work with people that are on tether or the requirements of tether. That means that the job has to be in contact with the agent. And sometimes, you know, in today's world, staffing is an issue and not everyone is able to do that. So sometimes finding jobs on tether is very difficult. So another idea that I've had in doing this job is having a flip-flop program in the MDOC where people from St. Clair County could like go out to Ingham County and Ingham County could come here, because a lot of times people are being paroled right back into the same environment that they were using in heavy. Port Huron is a pretty small town and it can be very problematic. I know for me, I'm from Wayne County, and it took me moving out to St. Clair County to get clean. I know that's not always the answer, and there is a possibility of doing it not that way. But I do think that's something that could help. So most parolees and probationers cannot transfer to a 3/4 house. It's something that's considered a temporary address. So unfortunately, when they're leaving jail or prison, a 3/4 house would not be a place for them to go to. They would need a permanent address in the county that they're transferring to. So it's kind of like they're stuck. So housing is an issue because of that. There are only 2 male 3/4 houses in Port Huron. One is always full. They both charge rent. One accepts a fan scholarship. That will help with the first 2 weeks. Females do have a house and an MAT house that is funded, which is super nice. I would love to see that for men out here too. So the halfway house is riddled with drugs. Unfortunately, it's like a huge issue. A lot of people are court ordered to the halfway house out here. And then some of the clients I serve talk about how, you know, their roommates using all night. And that can be a really hard struggle. And I would say the biggest barrier we have is transportation. As peer recovery coaches in MDOC, we're not allowed to transport. So I have no way to get them back and forth to meetings. If it's raining, I'm not able to connect them to as many community supports as I would like to. I would say like 90% probably don't have a valid license yet. It's something they're working towards. And then if they're driving anyways, it can cause more problems. So most people on parole are told to get employment immediately. And the only place that they can really get into in this county is factories like that. And factories have like a huge issue with using and drug use in there. But there's a lot of pressure to get money to pay your fines. And there's a lot of pressure to get money to get a place and get on your feet. So sometimes they just do the next best thing, and it ends up taking them a few steps back in a lot of cases. I would love to see more MAT providers, Vivitrol providers. And then lastly, they're given guidelines and very little help on how to do any of the things that they're required to do before they're referred to us. So what's happened with the peer coaches is that we've turned into part of like a reentry to like help them with those next steps, which has been really cool. So importance of community supports is everything. We would not be successful without them. We have a woman out here who does like rehab runs. She'll come pick somebody up and take them into rehab. Odyssey House will pick up clients that need residential or detox. I use CMH a lot here in town to try to advocate for extra support, knowing that their peer coaches can transport also. There is a clubhouse for support meetings in town. It's called the Dry Dock, and they open it pretty much all day. They not only have 12-step meetings going on and like MARA meetings,